Good evening. At 6 o'clock, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll start with an invocation led by Vice Mayor Smith, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Helsley. Please rise as you're able.
Tonight we gather to do the city's business, but we gather to do good. We look around the world and see disagreement, but we also find sparkles of united countries and peoples, and we hope to be one of those in our corner of the world. Be with us as we deliberate, allow us to listen well, and achieve the best result for the citizens of Knoxville. In your name I pray, amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, would you please call roll?
Councilwoman Fugit.
Here.
Councilwoman Helsley. Councilwoman Helsley. Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Ryder.
Here.
Councilman Roberto.
Here.
Councilwoman Singh.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Here.
And Councilman Thomas. Here. 7 members present. 8 members, or 9 members. 7 members present, Mayor.
You got it right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
8 members.
I think
yes,
everyone's here
8,
but Ms.
yeah.
McKenzie.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving right along, is there a motion on the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
Motion made to approve the minutes has been made. Is there a second? Made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, tonight's agenda, are there any items to be withdrawn? Ms. Singh, are there any items to be withdrawn? Okay. I thought you might. Is it 11J?
Why, yes, it is.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to withdraw 11J.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made to withdraw item 11J has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Parker, question?
Any updates to share with us in regards to this grant?
Yeah, our sustainability team met with the people who are writing the grant, and they've already submitted it, and they were just really far along, and so we said there you can only, we didn't want to be competing with them, so we wish them the best of luck, and we'll be applying for other grants in the future.
Fabulous, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, the item is, if you vote in favor, is to withdraw item 11J. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion to withdraw carries. Are there any other items to be withdrawn? Council?
No withdrawn.
Okay. Items to be postponed?
That's me.
Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to postpone for 2 weeks items 12K, 12L, and 12M. Those are the rezonings at 962 North Gallagher View Road.
Second.
Okay, to postpone for 2 weeks, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, the motion,
I'm sorry, you're wrong. The parties have met, but they're going to continue to meet, and the neighborhood is going to develop some action plans to get to the applicants so that they can continue their discussions.
okay, a motion to postpone for 2 weeks, items 12K, L, and M. It's been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to postpone carries. Any other items to be postponed? Okay, are there any items requested to be added by motion? Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion made to approve has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, time now for my mayor's report. I know a lot of people in our community, including council members, have been getting ready for back to school, whether we have friends and family who work at our schools, or we have kids attending schools. It's a busy, busy time of year. So students return Thursday morning, and as we know, a smooth start to the school year relies on everyone working in tandem to make sure our kids have the best year possible. So just yesterday, KPD joined other first responders and school leaders as they talked about enhanced safety measures including a new anonymous text-to-tip app that students, faculty, and families can use. And this is also a good time to remind drivers to slow down in school zones and to be extra alert at school crossings. And I know KPD will be enforcing the speed zones around schools at all times, but maybe especially this time of year when it's back to school time. So I'm very excited to welcome kids back to school. As our kids go back to school, families might be more interested in what kind of resources are available in our community. So good luck, because we have our annual Neighborhood Resource Fair this Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Jacob Building at Chilhowie Park. More than 80 groups will be on site ready to inform you about their programs and answer questions about their services. This is various nonprofits, several city departments, and community groups like the American Job Center, Goodwill Industries, the Change Center, and more. This is a drop-in event designed to help community members plug into all Knoxville has to offer. Admission is free, and we hope to see you out there. There are also, I think, food and drinks and door prizes, and it's fun as well as informative. So you might want to stop by if you have time on Saturday. It's a really cool occasion. And a quick reminder about our rules of decorum. Those who wish to speak either to a specific agenda item or during public forum should sign up with the city recorder, Mr. Johnson, before 4 p.m. Please do not use profanity, and when speaking to specific agenda items, please remember to stay on topic. Robert's Rules of Order state that remarks must be germane to the question ahead of the assembly. That is, statements must have a bearing on whether the pending motion should be adopted. Those who fail to adhere to these rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. For those who are listening, please note you may not disrupt a public meeting from the audience. Those who do may be asked to leave. Thank you in advance for everyone's respect for these rules. That concludes my report. Are there any reports of council members or committees? Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Next Thursday, August 15th, the Central District Captain Schaefer will host a community forum and open house for all city residents, but particularly for South Knoxville, at Woodlawn Christian Church. That's next Thursday, August 15th at 6 p.m. Encourage all South Knoxville residents to attend and ask questions of KPD and discuss what's going on in their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Councilmember McKenzie?
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to invite the community to come out and celebrate the 8th of August with the Beck Center. They're going to be having their red carpet event affair on the 8th, which is Thursday, starting at 6 o'clock at the Tennessee Theater. It's going to be honoring Judge William Hasty. His son will actually be here in the city and will be speaking as well. So I'd like to invite everyone to please come out. If you can't attend that, please stop by the Beck Center to learn more about history and Judge Hasty. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Judge Hasty, for those of you who don't know, he's the first African-American appointed federal judge in the United States, and he's from right here in Knoxville. He's quite an incredible person, and now this is a documentary about his life, so thank you, Councilmember McKenzie. Any other reports? Councilmember Thomas?
Yes, this past weekend was Lonsdale's annual homecoming and parade. I'd like to thank Clarence McDowell and all the folks on that committee and in Lonsdale. Also, some city staff, Kendra Brewer and LaKenya Middlebrook helped us work out some logistics that were very helpful to get this done this year. And many people participated, but I did want to give a call out to Turn Up Knoxville, Commercial Metals, who's been a neighbor and a friend to that community, and the KPD for participating in the parade. Next year will be the 40th annual, and there'll be a parade with music and lots of food and fun. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Okay, I don't see any other lights on, so we'll move on to item 8, please.
8A is a resolution reappointing Ben Ream to serve as the 1st District's representative to the City of Knoxville Public Property Naming Committee.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9A is an ordinance of the Council of the City of Knoxville to amend the Charter of the City of Knoxville, specifically Chapter 412 of the Private Acts of 1923 of the General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, entitled An Act to Incorporate the City of Knoxville and Knox County, Tennessee, and define the rights, powers, and liabilities of the same, to fix the boundaries of said municipality and repeal all acts or parts of acts in conflict with this act and all acts amendatory thereto by amending Article 4, Section 404 so as to align the 5th Council District with the other district council elections, and further providing for the submission of this ordinance to the qualified voters of the City of Knoxville for approval as provided in Article 11, Section 9 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council, there's one person who signed up to speak on this item in opposition. Mr. Bentley Marlowe, are you present? Mr. Marlowe, there you are. You can step up to the podium, turn on the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Bentley Marlowe, 322 Douglas Avenue, 37921 in Mechanicsville. More of the same from 2 weeks ago. I oppose this. I don't believe there's been enough public comment. I've somebody who's had the issue of public comment used against me when I've tried to propose changes, even though I had 4 public meetings. This having only been brought before us once at an opportunity to have a public forum, I think it's a bit rushed. It seems to be following the rushed timeline that Mr. Roberto has laid out for his amendment. I kind of think that we should probably take a little bit more time, have some workshops, more opportunities for input, because there's far more than just this issue that needs to be addressed in our city charter. So that's the gist of my, just in principle, opposition to this. And the particulars here, the implications of this would be that 6 council seats would be in the same election cycle. That is 2/3 of council. So in the event that we have some overwhelming movement that comes in and changes 6 seats of council overnight, we literally could have a new majority with a new makeup that could pass new regulations, new rules that would totally upend the way business is conducted. And that is not conducive for business environments. It takes, particularly what I do is in construction trades, building, there's years sometimes on projects of planning and working through things and going through the steps. And so if that is changed all of a sudden after one election cycle, that could potentially derail like people from even having the incentive to start a long-term project or a long-term business venture because there would simply be too much risk for the entire makeup of the regulatory boards and rules and regulations to change literally overnight if 2/3 of council changed all at once. So I think we really need to work and look at that. I feel for the voters over in the 5th, and I really have a lot of sympathy. Charles' argument that, as somebody who ran, that people in the 5th don't have that opportunity to run at large and then 2 years later run in the district or vice versa. That is a huge disadvantage. But I don't think the solution to that is moving them to put 2/3 of council all at once. I think we could talk about more creative solutions that probably provide a better mix if we had a workshop. The one idea I've kicked out is if we adjusted it so that our at-large, because it is much costlier to run at-large, a lot more work. If we made our at-large have 6-year terms, then we could make the election cycles look like 2 districts or regions, if Roberto's proposal advances, with 1 at-large in each election cycle, so that there's only ever 1/3 of council at stake, which would better provide continuity to prevent some sort of, knee-jerk reaction from the voters to just clean house if they were to do so. But ideas such as that could be thoroughly vetted and talked about and kicked around and brainstormed if we simply made it a priority to have a workshop session to talk about this before we just start putting options before voters that are hastily crafted. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. That concludes the people who signed up to speak on this agenda item. Councilmember Thomas?
This has not been hastily crafted. This has been talked about for years in my district and months with the city council. We're all very well reversed with the situation in the 5th district and the disadvantage that the current system also. Just for the public, what this all boils down to is the voters and the candidates in the 5th district simply want to be treated the same way as the voters and the candidates in all the other districts. And so I would hope that my colleagues would support this motion on second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councilmember Fugit?
Thank you. I just want to point out that As it stands now, the majority of council turns over in that election cycle anyway. It's either 5 city council seats or 6 if this changes. So a majority of council turns over with the election cycle anyway.
And I would only add that this may not always be the case as far as veterans and newbies. The reason why we kind of get this mass turnover is because incumbents almost always run and the incumbents almost always get elected. That's not going to be the case over time. At some point, an incumbent is not going to run, like the person to my right did last time, and at some point, incumbents are going to get beat. And when that happens, it won't be a completely 6-member turnover. You'll have veterans that run and not. So that is the long-term solution to this. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Parker? I couldn't see your light.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I should.
Since the speaker brought up this issue, I did ask our city council staff if they could help with some research on this issue, and Will Johnson did, the recorder, Will Johnson, did offer some moments within our code and charter that require a 2/3 vote by city council, and so I wanted to put this on the record so voters were aware. This is going to go to you for a vote, so it is something that you should be aware of. If council has to pass ordinances on 2 votes, but we can also pass it on emergency. An emergency vote can be approved by 2/3 of council. An amendment or a repeal of council's rules of order take 2/3 of an affirmative vote. Suspension of a rule of order requires 2/3 vote. To expel a member for disorderly conduct takes 2/3 vote. Filling a vacancy on council requires 6 votes. Filling a vacancy in the office of municipal judge requires 6 votes. Let's see. To limit or extend debate on an issue takes 6 votes. To object to the consideration of a question takes 6 votes. To adopt an agenda item that conflicts with existing order of business takes 2/3. To change the order of the questions presented to council takes 6 votes. Those are just a few. Nothing really stood out to me as giving the 6 members power that concerns me more than a majority vote, which currently is held by the 5 district reps that come in at the same time, often, not always. So I just wanted to share a few. There's a few more, and I can post these to my website, but it's good for, since this topic has been brought up, it's good for the public to know what votes council can take with 6 people, what decisions council can take with 6 people.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
9B is an ordinance of the Council of the City of Knoxville to amend the Charter of the City of Knoxville, specifically Chapter 412 of the Private Acts of 1923 of the General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, entitled An Act to Incorporate the City of Knoxville and Knox County, Tennessee, and to define the rights, powers, and liabilities of the same, to fix the boundaries of said municipality, and repeal all acts or parts of acts in conflict with this act, and all acts amendatory thereto, by amending Article 7, Section 707, so as to replace members of council elected by district in Section B with members of council elected at large regionally with residency requirements, and amending provisions of Article 7, Section 707B and C, so as to provide for primary and regular elections for City Council, amending Article 4, Sections 401 and 402, and Article 7, Section 704, for consistency with this council composition, and further providing for the submission of this ordinance to the qualified voters of the City of Knoxville for approval as provided in Article 11, Section 9 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, we have several people signed up to speak to this item. I'll call the people in favor, speaking in favor, and then opposed, and then we'll go back to your discussion. Yeah, Councilmember Roberto?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to amend the rules and let everyone speak like we did last time.
Okay.
Second.
A motion's been made to suspend the rules and allow all the people signed up to speak. It has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Amelia Parker? Sorry? This is about the motion on suspending the rules.
It is. I had a request from someone in the public to speak, and someone signed up to speak, was going to give them their slot to speak. But I don't know if it's this question or if it's my item. Is Rick Roach signed up to speak on this item?
Yes. Yes, he is.
I believe this is the one if I can make a friendly amendment to the motion, to also include a swap of speakers with Rick Roach and Nzinga Amani.
Okay, well, maybe we'll vote on Councilmember Roberto's motion first, and then you can make a separate motion? Or, I mean, it seems like he wanted to let all the people signed up to speak, which is beyond the 3 for, and 3 against. And if you want to make a separate motion to do what you just said, I think that was sort of a distinct thing.
I can make a separate motion,
Okay.
that's fine.
So, council members, any further discussion on Councilmember Roberto's motion about, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people signed up to speak in favor of item 9B, and 1, 2, 3, 4 people signed up to speak in opposition. This would allow, I guess, all of those people, if they're present, to speak. Any, Councilmember Helsley, did you have a comment?
Well, I wanted to add a friendly amendment. Is that after they speak?
We're just talking about the rules of speak. Yeah, the amendment, a substantive
the
amendment
rules.
would come after.
Okay. Okay.
Any questions or discussion about this Councilmember Roberto's motion? Seeing none, Councilmember Parker? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion, that rule change carries. Councilmember Parker, did you want to?
Make a motion to suspend our rules to allow Nzinga Amani to speak in place of Rick Roach.
Okay, is there a second to this motion? Okay, a second. Any discussion? This would be allowing what's their last name?
Amani?
Amani to speak in lieu of Rick Roach on item 9B. Is that correct? Is I saying that correctly? Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Vice Mayor Smith?
I just want to state, I'm going to vote no on this only because this is a precedent that I don't want to set for subsequent meetings, regardless if this is a charter member or not. Calling in late and substituting speakers is not something we should get in the habit of, but that's for my vote.
Any further questions or discussion?
Well, I just would add to that this is someone who has participated quite often in council meetings, but we've changed the rules have been changed. We didn't change them. The time you have to sign up to speak by is a rule change that council doesn't have to make. And so the public is taking time to learn the new rule. And that's the reason for the swap, because I believe Nzinga called in at like 4:01, 4:05, a few minutes late. It's a new rule. That's what I'm saying.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Yeah, I just want to add that the point of treating everyone the same, is that the rules apply to everyone unless we amend our rules. And so just for me, I'm not going to start that precedent now.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Parker, your light's on? No? Okay. Seeing no further lights on, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion does not carry. Okay, I'll go ahead and start calling on the speakers who've signed up. First is Reverend Sam Brown. Reverend Brown, president of the Knoxville chapter of the NAACP. If you come to the podium, adjust the microphone as you need to, and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you very much. Sam Brown, 37914. I come tonight simply to ask this body to protect the citizens, the city of Knoxville's right to choose. Our state legislature, again, is trying to impose something on us that will limit our choices. When I look at this dais and I see the diverse representation for the first time in the existence of our city, 3 women of color are members of our city legislature. And I will say on a personal note, I had the privilege of casting votes for all 3 of you. I believe that the people in the city of Knoxville may have a misunderstanding of an antiquated narrative of how the different ethnicities that make up the city of Knoxville are represented. The district that I currently live in, that I currently work and serve in, I attended elementary school in District 6, attended middle school in District 6, matriculated and graduated high school in District 6, is no longer a district that reflects the majority of my community, of the African American community. And it is by our voices being able to be heard citywide that we can ensure diverse representation. It is through our current system and our current structure of electing city council that has yielded the most diverse council that we've ever seen. Now, I do understand why some people may have issue with other districts and other residents in other districts or other parts of the city having a voice in who represents them. But anything that comes out of our state legislature right now, it truly does give me pause. And I question the motives of those who propose this legislation that put us in this predicament. Now, once again, I'm not even here to discuss the principles or the fundamentals of whether you agree or disagree with this charter amendment. But I do believe that it is the right thing to do to ensure that the citizens and the voters in the city of Knoxville have a right to make that choice and not have to live under something that is imposed on us by our state legislature. Protect our right to choose. Why is our state legislature trying to limit our choices? Why is our state legislature trying to make more shallow the pool of voters selecting those who will enact local policy that governs our day-to-day lives? We have an opportunity right now. Our state legislature has already imposed on us partisan school board elections, and we have already seen how chaotic that has become. We see what divisiveness, how it obstructs government in our school board and in our county commission. It gives me some consolation to know that the city council person from District 1 and District 2 and District 3 must at some point come to District 6 and talk to the people that I lead and serve. Please, city council, put this to the voters in Knoxville so that we will have a right to choose on how we want to be governed locally. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak in favor of this item is Larry Deering. Larry Deering, are you present? Mr. Deering, if you could come to the podium, State your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
My name is Larry Deering. I live at 200 Adair Drive in Knoxville, and I'm speaking on behalf of Fountain City Town Hall. But before I get started, I want to say something to this council that you need to hear, and unfortunately, I'm sure don't hear often enough. Thank you for the hard work that you do. And I want to begin by reciting a few lines from a song by Chuck Brodsky. The boys in the back room played golf every Sunday. There was a pinochle game that took place on Monday. Tuesday were the meetings to which the public was invited, but no wrongs were ever righted. Couldn't happen here? Well, not with the quality of council members that we've been elected for the last several years. But I think we all know that not every elected official is ethical and honest. And what could easily happen with 5 members of city council answering only to their own district? Somebody could sneak in, work with the boys in the back room, and get something absolutely horrible passed. And members who voted for that thing would not be answerable to everybody in the city. So something that could be harmful to my district could be passed with votes of the other 4 district council members and 1 at large. Is this likely to happen? Not in the near future. With future council members, it could be possible. So the whole point is, why offer temptation to people when the way we've been doing it since 1969 works? So I do urge you to vote in favor of 9B.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak in favor of 9B is Joyce Feld. Ms. Feld? You can state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Feld, and I live at 1540 Aguila Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. I'm here tonight to ask you to vote yes on item 9B. As an active member of this community and one who votes in every election, I've always loved that members of City Council have been elected through a citywide vote in the general election. The majority of the decisions that council makes affects every resident of Knoxville, no matter which district they live in. And I appreciate that all Knoxville voters have had a voice in who each member will be. The system has made all members of council accountable to everyone in the city, and the process has guaranteed a public that is more engaged in the city's civic life. This system, as somebody else mentioned, has also produced the most diverse council that we've ever had. Over the years, I've reached out frequently to council members about issues that I've been concerned about, and every member has always been responsive and willing to dialogue with me, whether they agreed with my position or not. This is not the case with every legislative body. We need to ensure that this continues for everyone in the community. So, once again, I'm asking you to please vote for this resolution to be on our ballot in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak in favor of 9B is Kaylee McVetti. Ms. McVetti, if you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Hi there. My name's Kaylee McVetti. I live in 37919. I'm here today to speak in support of Roberto's charter amendment. I've been following this change for months and watched all 3 hours of the discussion 2 weeks ago at the first reading. I'm nervous that the majority of Knoxvillians do not quite understand the gravity that this change has on our town and our ability to maintain accountability and accessibility to all of our council members. I've lived in many cities throughout the country before landing here in Knoxville. One thing I know is that Knoxville is very special. And I know I've vocalized that to many of you here on council. This town is precious because we still operate on the grounds of being a community. Knoxvillians are invested in their friends, neighbors, neighborhoods, schools, and strategic growth of our town. Knoxvillians take pride in statements like, "We aren't like those other big cities, and we don't want to be." I've lived in other big cities, and I can tell you that when I did, I never once had accessibility to any representatives making decisions for the growth of my town. When I moved here, I was amazed that places like this still exist, and since then, I've become invested in making sure that Knoxville maintains this sweet community that is disappearing from what seems like every other town in America. And that's why I'm here today. My current District 18 State House Representative, Elaine Davis, who, in case nobody knows, does not even live in the city limits of Knoxville, made a decision and passed a bill last year taking away Knoxvillians' accessibility to all city council members as a whole. The bill decreases our representation from all 9 members to just 4, your district representative and the 3 at-large spots. I know it's common sense, but I have to just say it out loud that that's not even half. How are the voters going to have any stake in how our town grows if we don't even have accountability from half of our voting members on council? This is a move that will definitely change our town, and this is a move that will turn us slowly into every other town in America. I watched last reading as one of our city council members raised concern about this change disparaging our majority-minority districts. A concern that I find very valid, as representation is absolutely needed for all of our populations in this town. However, I was unable to find any evidence of disenfranchisement in any of those arguments. District 6 was brought up as one of our majority-minority populations. Gwen McKenzie, an African-American female, won the primary and then went on to win more citywide votes than any other member of this council. Amelia, you were elected in a citywide at-large race. And finally, Seema, another minority on our council, was runner-up in her district-only race and then won on a citywide level. Further, 6 out of 9 of our council members are female, and so is our mayor. I think the voices of Knoxville and the actions of the Knoxvillian voters speak loud and clear that we vote on competency and not on prejudices. The paper that was cited last city council meeting just doesn't represent our community. And for that reason, please let us, the people of Knoxville, vote on this in November. At the last city council meeting, there was a comment made that Knoxvillians shouldn't be able to vote on this, and I could not disagree more with that. When you decrease somebody's representation in the magnitude that this does, we absolutely should have a say in this. And so I just want to reiterate to anybody here that this vote today is just as to whether or not Knoxvillians get to make this decision as opposed to our state legislature. And I absolutely think that this vote should be in the hands of Knoxvillians. So thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak in favor of 9B is Cliff Rogers. Mr. Rogers, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Clifford Rogers, 3526 Kingston Pike, 37919, former administrator of elections for Knox County. Before I touch upon any of the concerns or issues with this amendment, let us not lose focus of where we are and what you are being asked to consider. With all due respect, in my view, your role here tonight is simply one of a gatekeeper, like mine was at the Election Commission. We decided who could legally vote, and who could not, who could run for office, and who could not. We did not decide the underlying issues or races. The voters did. That's all that's being asked of you tonight. Are these proposed amendments, or this one in particular, ballot worthy? In other words, should the voters have the opportunity to approve of these amendments or not? Or are you going to just shut the door in their faces and tell them, no, we can't actually trust you to decide on matters touching the underpinnings of our democracy, specifically how we conduct our city elections? I might remind you that you trusted these very same voters when you ran for office to do the right thing and elect you, and they did. So why would you not now trust them to exercise their collective wisdom on these amendments? Let all of the voters decide. And let me remind you too, lest you forget, that you can still vote to allow all of our residents to decide these amendments, and you could vote against them in November, as any other resident could if they believe now or become convinced later that these are not in the best interest of the city. That is not inconsistent with your role of gatekeeper tonight. In fact, that's precisely what democracy is all about. And speaking of democracy, isn't that what these amendments do? They provide a mechanism, like we've apparently had since 1969, for all city voters to weigh in on all 9 races. As things now stand, without these amendments, pursuant to the mandate of the super-meddling, super-majority party over in Nashville, my former party of let local folks decide local issues, for the first time ever, you and I will no longer vote in all 9 races, but only 4, not even a majority. What a remarkable and uncalled for change in our elections. Doesn't sound like more democracy to me, which is what they were telling us down there in Nashville. Now, with respect to the issues surrounding these amendments, I'm well aware that the Knoxville News Sentinel published an article today discussing, by my count, 1 argument for and 5 against these amendments. The Knoxville News Sentinel consulted and quoted obviously very erudite professors, one from UNC at Charlotte, one from Ohio State, one from Georgia. Vanderbilt got 2, we got 0 down here where I went to school and to law school. And these professors were not like ones maybe here in Knoxville could have been, who would not have been restricted to their theoretical bubble in a neighboring state. They would have seen you all and see how we operate here in the city of Knoxville. But these arguments that were put forth by the News Sentinel, they do need to be discussed. But let's talk about them between now and November to see whether or not they have any merit. The overriding concern seems to be the potential for no minority representation on council. But as has been pointed out, look around. You all are Exhibit A. This is about as diverse as it gets. It accurately reflects, I think, the city of Knoxville. And the city of Knoxville has done themselves proud by electing a diverse group. This concern that has been put out forth may be valid in some cities, but it's not here in Knoxville. I'm not going to go through the rest of these. I'm running out of time, but let's just put them on the ballot, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. The last person signed up to speak in favor of item 9B is one of a former council member herself, Carleen Malone. Thank you for being here. If you'll step up to the podium, and as you know, we ask that you state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council. Thank you.
Carleen Malone, 6051 Fountain Road, Knoxville, 37918. It's always a pleasure to be here. I urge you to vote in favor of 9B. I served on council from 1991 to 2001. It was a different era, a different time. There were 2 women on council, 1 member of color. I think Knoxville has advanced greatly since those days, and I'm proud of that. I urge you to vote for this, 9B, because it allows the voters of Knoxville to continue to vote for all 9 council seats, so that all members of council are accountable to everyone in every district. This charter amendment enables and protects independent voices on city council and protects the free and candid exchange of ideas. And again, that's important and good for our city. Why do I say that? And I was one with something of an independent voice on council. So how does 9 council members facing all the voters help protect independent voices. District council members are able to advocate their position, even if it's contrary to the wishes of the other members of council or even the mayor, because they know that every district is protected by the virtue of the fact that every member has to face the voters of every district. 5 members of council can't get together and squeeze a district or squeeze a council member. Why? Because you're going to face them. You're going to face those voters the next time you run. The importance of having independent voices cannot be overstressed, in my opinion. It is really what brings about progress in any city and in any county. I appreciate the work and the thought that has gone into these charter amendments. The Knoxville election process should be decided by the voters, as has been said by other speakers. There is no question about that. The people of the city of Knoxville deserve to vote on the election process they would like to have and live under. No election process is perfect. I think it's unfortunate, to say the very least, that the state legislature has taken the action it has taken. What you're doing by putting this on the ballot, or if you vote to put it on the ballot, what you're doing is allowing the people of the city of Knoxville to again look at a voting process that they have enjoyed in the past, with some changes, of course, due to the legislative act, but at least gives the people of the city of Knoxville the idea that as their elected officials, you trust them and you care about what they have to say on this very important topic. Again, I appreciate all the work you've done. Ask you to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Council now will move to people who've signed up to speak in opposition to item 9B, starting with Bentley Marlowe. Mr. Marlowe?
Hi there, Bentley Marlowe, 322 Douglas Avenue, 37921. My opposition to this is much the same as it was last week or 2 weeks ago. We only vote for one state house representative. Several represent Knoxville, but you only get to vote for one. We only get to vote for one U.S. congressman. I think there's 9 that represent, or 11 that represent the entire state, but we only get to vote for one, and nobody seems to feel like they're not being heard. Nobody's screaming an outrage there. There's 435 members of Congress. You only get to vote for one, but nobody thinks that they're not being heard. No, you form a relationship with a representative that lives in your community, that experiences life pretty much the same as you do in the 30 square blocks that we heard someone talk about last time. Every neighborhood is unique and different, and they have different concerns. And that's why it's important to maintain a district and have a district representative that's answerable to the people in that community. And it's the preference of that community. Under this proposal, people could come in third in their region, yet win the thing outright if they get enough votes from certain parts of the city. It's entirely mathematically possible. Probably impossible in the 2nd district because that's where the highest voter turnout is. But if you were in a low voter turnout district, such as the 3rd or the 5th or mine, the 6th, you could come in third in your region, but win the day with 50 plus 1 over in District 2. It's mathematically possible. So I think this needs a lot more thought. We need to think about unintended consequences. And the precedent is all over the place that you vote for one representative, State House, one representative in the U.S. Congress. This idea that somehow we're going to lose representation by not voting for all 9, I think, is quite ridiculous. We never should have voted for all 9. The reason that we voted for all 9 was so that areas that are more affluent and have higher voter turnout can have sort of a veto power to keep other districts in check, and that's exactly what we see. We see that in things playing out before us all the time. Duplexes. I said this 2 weeks ago. You try to put a duplex in District 2 in West Hills, you're going to fill up this auditorium with people against it. You want to put a duplex in my neighborhood, in District 6, not a single person's going to say anything. You want to put it in maybe District 3, I seriously doubt anybody's going to say anything. District 4, they might say something, depending on which neighborhood. But it doesn't matter. If it's in District 2, you're going to fill this up, and it becomes a very torturous ordeal that everybody has to sit through because you all have to weigh the pros and cons of listening to everybody in District 2 who comes out and votes in such a large turnout that it's difficult to say no to them. And so if we make this that way for all the elections, we could never possibly get to where the interest of each individual district are truly given the attention that they need, because you guys will be beholden to where are the votes coming from. And right now, and has been for at least 2 decades, the majority of the votes come from West Knoxville. And so I think that, like I said 2 weeks ago, in principle, I wouldn't have a problem if we saw voter turnout in approximately the same amounts across the whole city, but we don't. And so I think that while we look at this, we need to be crafting a solution that takes in the reality of how our voter turnout is and who's going to have the most say and the most access to council. Because I dare say that someone that is higher educated and has higher income and more means, they can participate even if they don't vote. I regularly donate. I donated to Mr. Park in South Knoxville in this county race election. I don't live there. I couldn't vote for him, but I could support him with my wallet. And I don't think anyone in the 2nd District has any disability to use their wallet to support any of the other council members other than the 4 they can vote for. It's how it's done everywhere else. I only vote for 1 county commissioner. I only vote for 1 House member, but I've given money to other House candidates outside of my district. Same with U.S. Congress. So I think that that's just the fairest way to do it. And again, I still think that we need more discussion just to flesh this out. Mr. Roberto himself said that this was rushed. And I think that should be enough to give us all pause.
Okay, next person signed up to speak against 9B is Nick Ciparo, or Ciparo, sorry, Ciparo?
It's okay, everyone messes that up.
Well, if you can start by stating your name and the correct pronunciation, so
yes,
we'll learn,
yes,
and then your address.
It's Nick Ciparo, 37921.
Thank you.
I have a feeling that I might be a little bit responsible for this because it was my race in 2001 against Ms. Singh where I won the District 3, by north of 80%. So that happened, but I did lose by about 140, 150 votes, I believe, somewhere in that number. And it was South Knoxville that had like a 10-to-1 ratio against me. Mr. Smith did pretty good campaigning. It happens. It is what it is. And you know, you win some, you lose some. It is what it is. But what happened after that, and so I'm going to have to educate the crowd and everybody about what happened because it seems like a lot of people don't know what happened. There were about 6 to 8 neighborhood associations in our district that met. They had a giant meeting, and District 3, when they say, oh, Elaine Davis is not part of District 3, no, she doesn't live in District 3, that's true. But her state representative district covers most of District 3. So they went to her and they asked, why is this like this? Why are we voting like this? Because honest to goodness, when I knocked on north of 3,000 doors, they did not a single voter understood this. They did not understand that the district is won and then it's at large during the general election. Now, I knew that. It happens. We even talked about it, you know, amicably and everything like that. It is what it is. But most of the voters did not, and they were aggravated. District 3, I mean, I hate to say this, but I don't think a single one of you guys politically represent District 3. Diversity, I mean, you all are Democrats. This is a fact, unless I think Lynn might not be. So diversity by political, it doesn't exist. And meanwhile, my district is a very, very overwhelmingly Republican district. So that being said, they asked her, a Republican, can you fix this? Because every other city does not have the old rules. No other city in Tennessee except for very, very small locations had that. And the rules are the rules. They happen to be what they are. I'm not going to dispute that. But what it is true is that these people were upset. It upset them that their wishes were not honored. It's fine. You know, it happens. So they asked for their wishes to be honored. The state stepped in. That's what happened. They petitioned, just like you should, your state representative and multiple state representatives, and then had the law changed. They stripped the city of that because they were tired of not being represented. Now, that being said, why I say no to this is because I'm going to be really, really nice about this and say, if you move forward with something like this, it opens the door for the county to do the same. Would you like every single school board member at large in the county? Would you like every county commissioner at large? You will lose for another 50 years. There will not be another Democrat on county commission or any county seat for 50 years. I can guarantee that because it is a 65% majority. That's why you don't want to open this Pandora's box. That's why. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much. I didn't want to be so doom and gloom, but I like to prefer democracy. I like people voting and getting their way. I don't like when a mob majority takes over, even if it does serve my party. I don't like it. It's not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak in opposition to 9B is Parker Bartholomew. Mr. Bartholomew, if you could state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Parker Bartholomew, 5406 Summit Ridge Lane. This entire process has been rushed. The fact that the Third Amendment tonight would need to be passed via emergency is proof that we're rushing. One postponement and we're out of time. More discussion and community involvement is had on a duplex use on review than these charter amendments have received. There's no dispute that at-large voting dilutes the votes of a particular district. The will of the individuals in that district are overruled by the will of the entire city. The new state law ensures that a district will be permitted and encouraged to send their choice of representative to council. A typical district turns out a couple thousand votes, but across the city it takes 11 to 15,000 to win. The proposed charter amendment would dilute the votes of each district. These have been described as a second-generation barriers to minority voting. At-large voting was made illegal at the federal level, and then through the Voting Rights Act, multiple at-large systems have been found to be unconstitutional. This occurred in Dillard v. Baldwin City, Dillard v. Crenshaw City. The DOJ brought action in the United States v. West Monroe, Louisiana, United States v. Chamberlain School District, United States v. East Point, United States v. Town of Lake Park, Florida, United States v. Euclid, United States v. Georgetown County School District. In each of these, at-large voting was found to be discriminatory. But don't take my word for it. From Shelby v. Holder, quote, "It soon became apparent that guaranteeing equal access to the polls would not suffice to root out racially discriminatory voting practices, such as voting dilution. Efforts to reduce the impact of minority votes in contrast to direct attempts to block access to the ballot are aptly described as second-generation barriers to minority voting. Second-generation barriers come in various forms. One of the blockages is racial gerrymandering, the redrawing of legislative districts, and an effort to segregate the races for a purpose of voting. Another adoption is a system of at-large voting in lieu of district-by-district voting in city with a sizable black minority." This was Ruth Bader Ginsburg in dissent. Those were her words, not mine, clearly stating that at-large voting is, and let me say this again, a second-generation barrier to minority voting. How appropriate that she, in the dissent, makes this argument. She, in the dissent of Shelby v. Holder, made this argument. I want you all to think about how you all would feel, and it was hinted on by the previous speaker. Many of your all's positions would change if we were to put this at the county commission or the school board ballot. Many of your positions would change. Thank you.
Okay, the last person signed up to speak in opposition to item 9B is Rick Roach. Mr. Roach. You can state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Rick Roach, Knoxville. I voted local elections, all elections, pretty much. I think I missed maybe a year's worth in terms of cycles for all levels of government since 1972. I was raised to vote. When you register to vote, you vote. And I've also known about our local seats, city council seats, general election, you can vote. But I've never voted outside the district that I resided in, just as a matter of principle, because I don't want people that don't live in my community that I live in, that maybe has a particular set of issues. I don't want them, people, as the gentleman illustrated, I don't want those people making decisions. I don't, about where I live. But as it has been practiced, and you all are the best illustration of that, that's what happens. And so, as I have lived the best portion of my life here in Knoxville, in predominantly black communities, the weakest link, as I've iterated, Lauren, you heard me say it multiple times when I was on Neighborhood Advisory Council with you. Others, you've heard me say it. This city is only as strong as its weakest link. And this past round of local elections is a very good illustration of that. Okay? I heard the current election commissioner mention that when he was speaking to you out the workshop, he said, one way to get around this is for people to vote, to get people out to vote. And historically, 6th District, I don't know, but I know 6th District has a very low voter turnout, very low. Okay, considering the so-called registered voters, and I say so-called because why register to vote if you're not going to vote? Okay, and that's the issue, and so we see the results of that because of the fact that other people are making decisions about a particular district. We had no say-so about the baseball stadium. We just didn't. We had no say-so. When there was recommendations for a community benefits agreement to be done, nothing. No one heard us. No one wanted to hear us. Therefore, there was no community benefits agreement, and someone from outside the community that was in vast need of a bump. I still remember you, Councilman Smith, coming to me and saying, what do you think about a $500 million investment in East Knoxville? And what that might mean, a boost in the economy and everything. Because there was a recognition that so many decisions had been made by so many people outside the 6th District that there was nothing to show. Okay? There's a recognition of that. You all recognize that. And so, in that process, the model that Councilman Roberto is putting forward, it's just not going to work. It hasn't worked, okay? It hasn't. And, you know, we've had promises and all these initiatives made, millions of dollars supposed to be invested and all this other kind of crap. And guess what? Nothing. We're still scrambling, okay? Because, and now I've had too many people from the 6th District that live in the 6th District. I don't live in the 6th District anymore. I live right next to it now. I'm now in the 4th District, okay? All right? And Knoxville, yes, it is becoming more diverse. That's the other problem. It is a problem now, okay? Because black folk are spread out through 4th District, 6th District, 3rd District, okay? We're all over, but we're still concentrated in Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, and East Knoxville. So you've got all that going on, okay? So this is a bad model. You need to do more study. That's
Thank you,
basic.
Mr. Roach. Your time is up. Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. When I think about the principles of democracy, I see democracy as expansive and not restrictive. And so I think we should keep that in mind with what we're talking about tonight. We had a change in the state law, and the way that you have, Knoxville, you have voted for your city council members has already changed. You've gone from getting to vote for all 9 members, and now you get to vote for 4, without council doing anything. That's what's already happened. Without you voting on it, that's what's already happened. You went from 9 votes to 4 votes. The sole purpose of this charter amendment is to preserve the right of every Knoxville voter to vote on all 9 members of their city council. The alternative, which is to do nothing, would be district-only approach. And that will mean that every voter in Knoxville will no longer have a vote for all 9 members of council. Instead, every voter will only get to vote for their specific district representative and 3 at-large members of council. That means that a district-only approach will literally divorce every voter from 5 members of council. That's a majority of council will no longer be accountable to the voters of every district in the city. The district-only approach means that as few as 500 voters could determine who serves on a city council that we all know and we see every day when we come in here makes decisions for the entire city. Dividing up council into district only brings out the potential for gerrymandering. And I don't want to see politicians picking who their voters are. I want to see voters picking who their politicians are. Ultimately, I want this to be a choice for the voters. And there will be some people who want district only, and that's okay. There are reasonable arguments to be made. But the point is that the citizens of Knoxville, the voters of Knoxville, should be the ones making that decision. I'm not going to sit up here and do nothing, and by doing nothing, disenfranchise every voter in the city of Knoxville. Nor am I going to cast a vote to adopt a policy that will disenfranchise every voter in the city of Knoxville. We need to get, because of what happened with the state law, we have to make a change to our system, and that change to bring us into compliance with the state law needs to be the decision of the voters. And that's why this is brought. There were some additional, I'll pass this to you. Can you pass that down for me? There were some additional comments by our MTAS folks about some non-substantive changes that they wanted to make to this charter amendment. You'll see those in front of you. Mr. Frost, I know you're passing those around. When you get back to your mic, if you could just maybe talk to us a little bit about whether these are substantive or not.
Thank you, Councilmember Roberto. MTAS and I drafted some proposed revisions. We do not think that they are substantive. Very briefly, we suggest deleting Section 4 simply because that's not needed for the actual question that would appear on the ballot, assuming this passed. And in the new Section 5, we've just merely added nomenclature to make it easier for people to understand. For example, District 1 would become South, District 2 would become west, and so on and so forth. So it's a matter of clarification, and we do not think they are substantive.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to make a motion to amend consistent with the recommendations of MTAS.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Roberto made a motion to amend his original item 9B per the MTAS recommendations. It's been made and seconded. You have the amendments before you. Mr. Frost explained what they are. Are there any further questions or discussion on these proposed amendments? Councilmember Helsley, are you, not on that. Councilmember Parker, did you have questions on this amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So my question for Mr. Frost is this an amendment that would need to be made in the future for Section 404, or would it continue to maintain the district language?
Well, what MTAS and I came up with, it was this 404 would be staying as is. So it wouldn't conflict, though, if Mr. Thomas's proposal passes, because there's a discussion in the, regarding the terms there.
Right, but the district language would remain in the charter unless another amendment was brought forward.
Well, Mr. Roberto's proposal has the language that would become in Section 707.
Right, but the language in Section 404 would remain the same, and so that would remain the district language. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions on the proposed amendments before you? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion to amend carries. Now we're back to the original motion as amended. Councilmember Helsley.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to 9B, B and C both, to read. This is actually to address the tiebreaker, to read, however, if more than one candidate receives the highest number of votes in the primary election, then only those candidates receiving the highest number of votes shall be placed on the regular election ballot.
Okay, so you're making a motion to item 9B, to amend item 9B,
B
to
and
add that
C,
tiebreaker language.
Right. Can I do them together? It's the
No,
same.
'cause
No, okay, 9B.
One at a time, we're only considering one
9B.
item. 9B. Okay? Did you have that in writing? Is that being distributed to everybody? Okay. Is there a second to this motion to amend? Okay, motion to amend has been made and seconded to add language to 9B that would incorporate a change to tiebreaker resolution in the event of a tiebreak. Are there any questions, Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mayor. I worked closely with Mr. Frost and MTAS on language to address the tiebreaker, and those are the documents that have been sitting at your seat. And there's actually to fully address it, it needs an additional sentence. The sentence that you've proposed is one that we were discussing, but then this afternoon we added another sentence for further clarification because it was not addressing the scenario of a tie between second place. And the reason why you have two copies is one gives you a clean copy, one gives you track changes in case you have time during this meeting
So, well,
to compare.
Councilmember Parker, we do have a pending motion on the floor to amend item 9B per Ms. Helsley's language. So you're commenting on that pending motion?
Yes, I'm commenting on that language
Okay.
and just sharing the update that in a conversation this afternoon, the language to deal with a tiebreaker has been expanded beyond this sentence that's being offered.
Okay, do you have, Mr. Frost? Yeah.
Thank you. Two different things. First, let's talk about Councilmember Helsley's proposal. So she is proposing a tiebreaker in two different parts. And that would address her scenario that she presented last week that maybe Vice Mayor Smith talked about too, of, for example, two people tying with 100 votes and one person receiving 50 votes. Councilmember Helsley's proposal would only have the two people receiving 100 votes going on to the general or regular election. So what Councilmember Helsley is proposing would go to Councilmember Roberto's proposal. Councilmember Roberto's initial proposal did not have any tie-break language. Therefore, if Councilmember Helsley's amendment is passed, that would be a substantive change to Councilmember Roberto's proposal, and that would mean Councilmember Roberto's proposal would be considered on first reading tonight. Now, Councilmember Parker, she has a tie-break proposal that applies to people who may tie in first place, as well as people who may tie in second place. So that is the difference between what Councilmember Helsley and Councilmember Parker are proposing. So they're different, but they're related. They just happen to be on different parts of the agenda. So that's why I assume Councilmember Parker is mentioning her proposal now.
Okay, why don't, I think Councilmember Roberto
Thank you,
was
Mayor.
next, and then we'll go to,
Can I say one more thing?
sure, Mr. Frost. go
I
ahead.
forgot to mention, for Councilmember Parker, Mr. Johnson and I passed around separate documents. One of us passed around the red line version. That's with the additions and things are struck through, additions are underlined. And the other one of us, and I don't remember who it was, passed around the clean version. That's with no red lines, it's clean. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. To my colleague, Councilmember Helsley, you asked for a friendly amendment, and looking at it, you're making changes to subsection B, which looks like you're adding tiebreaker language in that section, and then also in subsection C, where you're making the same change. My assumption is that your intent here is to add the tiebreaker language to what we've been voting on with the hybrid at large system. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And just like Mr. Frost said, it looks like from what I'm reading between these two, this scenario is making sure that the candidates receiving the highest number of votes in a tie would advance. It's not having the scenario where, you know, the second and third person might move forward instead. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. So the other thing I want to make sure everyone understands is that Mr. Johnson, maybe you can help me with this. In the recorded history that we have of city council elections, how often have we seen a tie vote?
Based on my recollection, the tie vote in 2017 was the first in living memory.
Okay. So the way I view this is it's a solution looking for a problem. It's not likely to happen. It's happened once. But I'm also okay with it because that's something we've talked about, and it's something that we've had some discussions about, making sure that this happens. I don't think anyone relishes the opportunity for having to make a vote on council about who wins and loses in a tie. So I understand that. I'm willing to accept it as a friendly amendment and go ahead and add that in. The thing I want to make sure is clear to everybody that if we do that, then we're going back to first reading. And if that happens, then I'm going to make a motion to pass it on emergency. So what I would like is that if you feel inclined to add the tie break, which again, I'll accept as a friendly amendment. I think that's fine. I also want to make sure that we pass it on emergency tonight. And so that, I just want to make that clear. So if everyone, if you feel like, hey, I want to add this and I don't want to pass it on emergency, if you could let us know that beforehand, I think that would be great, so that we can make sure that we can move this thing forward. But that's what I would like to do. So Mayor, I will accept it as a friendly amendment.
Okay, Vice Mayor Smith, and then Councilmember Ryder, and then we'll go back to Councilmember Parker.
Okay, so just to bring myself and the public up to speed, maybe everybody else is up to speed, but this will help me. So this builds upon the intent of Councilwoman Parker's item from her ordinance last time, and clarifies what happens when the first and second place tie. I think that's what it says. But, the second part of this is the item that you added more clarity, Councilwoman Parker, to this. So can you explain what you've added to this substance, which is an extension of your original idea? Yeah, on yours, what have you added in addition to what Councilwoman Helsley has read out loud?
Councilmember Parker?
Yeah, so the,
Just to clarify, you mentioned a second sentence, so if you could just
well,
talk
just to
about that.
clarify really quickly. My language originally proposed changed the language of the two candidates receiving the highest number of votes to the candidates receiving the two highest number of votes. That's what brought in potential confusion with what are the two highest number of votes.
Right.
If two people get 100 and one person gets 50, do we count 100 as one total and 50 as another total? To reconcile the two proposals, mine and Roberto's, I no longer change that language in my proposal. The original language, the two candidates receiving the highest number of votes, remains. And so the only thing that this language proposed by Councilmember Helsley does is it allows more than two candidates if three people receive the same vote total. They can move on to the ballot rather than just two people. But if there's a tie involving second place, which is what my experience was, it does not address that issue. My intention was that we would eliminate the possibility of a tie happening in a city primary, in any city election. We would have already resolved how that is handled in the charter.
Okay, moving on to Councilmember Ryder, and then Fugit. Or if you have your light on, yeah, okay. Councilmember Ryder.
No. Oh, okay. I have some questions about the proposed language about the tie break or the highest number of votes. Mr. Swanson, in 2017, you're okay. Sorry, I can't see because I sit back here and, yeah, anyway, I mark my complaints down again about the seating arrangement, week number, whatever. Sorry, I'm going to get snarkier and snarkier. It's just a year left, you have to listen to me. If you read this language here, I'm asking you for a quick analysis. Okay, if first and second place tie in an election, let's go back to 2017. If first and second place had tied, city council wouldn't have had to do anything, and there would have been no tie break discussion because you would have had first and second tied up with the same number of votes. But instead, what happened is you have a tie with second and third. So I'm trying to understand how the language here breaks that. However, if more than one candidate receives the highest number of votes in the primary election, in 2017, only one person got the highest number of votes. So I'm trying to understand how the language deals with sending 2 or 3 people. I feel like there's a word missing. So I realize, Mr. Frost, you want to,
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara and I wrestled with this language. I mean, we wrestled with language in all the different ones, but we purposefully wrote around the word tie, T-I-E. Why? Because there is a state statute that talks about ties. And when it comes to a general election, if there's a tie, then it can get thrown to the legislative body. So that's why we've got legalese, for good or for bad, and apparently it's for bad. But we tried to write around the word tie.
okay, I don't want the word tie. I don't feel like that's the missing word. I'm trying to understand how the words in yellow send 3 people to the ballot.
It would not. Councilmember, the amendment that Councilmember Helsley wanted me to compose addressed her scenario of 2 weeks ago where you had 2 people that received 100 votes and you had 1 person receive 50 votes. Councilmember Helsley's proposal is that only the 2 people who received 100 votes would go on to the general election. The person who received 50 votes would not go forward.
Okay, well, what if the first place got 100 votes and second and third, which becomes second and second if you do competitive sports with, cycling, gymnastics, et cetera, and people tie up on points. That's my experience. When you see the results, it says first place, second place, which is the scenario. So what happens when the first place candidate has 100 and the second place have 50 and 50?
Okay. That's not addressed by Councilmember Helsley's proposal. That is addressed by Councilmember Parker's proposal, because Councilmember Parker's proposal discusses the potential for two or more second place people to have the same number of votes, then they would go on. So and Councilmember Parker, correct me if I'm wrong, if you have 1 person with 100 votes and 2 people with 50 votes, if Councilmember Parker's proposal passes, the person with 100 votes goes to the general election and the 2 people with 50 votes also go on to the general election.
Okay, so I have 37 seconds. Councilwoman Parker, is that what you understand your language to say?
Yes.
Okay, so
So what would happen if Councilmember Helsley's was passed, as is, that only addresses a tie, don't use the tie language, that only addresses a situation where 2 people have the same number of votes and they're the highest number of votes, it would cause a similar situation that happened in 2017 or 2019, I don't remember which.
2017.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, then I guess we're ready to vote on this amendment. All those in favor, wait, Mr. Front, wait, does someone want to speak?
Yes, I might have misheard Councilmember Helsley, but did you only make your motion to apply to the first page of the handout? Did you mean both the second page as well?
I actually said B and C, but you said it'd have to be read again for C, but I did say B and C,
Okay.
if that's okay.
I just don't see how we can amend item 9C.
C of the same ordinance.
Oh, section, okay.
One's for at-large
I-
and one's for average worded.
I
regional at-large
misunderstood, so just to
citywide.
let the record reflect that the way you said it is the way you meant it, and ignore my misinterpretation.
You're not a motion.
Shall,
Yeah.
will do.
Will and I misinterpreted, so you said, I don't think there is any correction needed beyond what we just said. So your language as you originally said it. Does everyone understand the motion on the floor, the friendly amendment that Ms. Helsley is offering? Councilmember McKenzie?
Thank you, Mayor. So
at this juncture, it appears to me that we need one amendment that's going to address both scenarios, rather than voting on one that would only address one scenario, and then we have to start this process back over again with addressing the tie part, well, the
Mr.
vote
Frost?
getters.
The same
Same number of votes, yes. If there's one person that has 100 votes and two people that have 75. So in my opinion, I could be wrong, because there's a lot of conversations going on, we really need to have one amendment, address one amendment that addresses both scenarios.
Well, Mr. Swanson, feel free if you disagree with me. So if Councilmember Helsley's proposal passes and Councilmember Parker's proposal passes, and they both appear on the ballot, and they both pass by the voters, I don't think they would be in conflict, because they would both have tie-break language for the first place finisher, but I think Councilmember Parker's tie-break language for the second place, it is not contradictory to Mr. Roberto's, and they could be, the Councilmember Parker's could supplement Councilmember Roberto's. Mr. Swanson?
Frankly, it seems to
Turn your mic on.
seems to me that the easiest way to deal with the question that was asked is to simply add the additional sentence. If Councilmember Helsley permits it, add the additional sentence that deals not only with the two highest votes, but also deals with when you got the one highest and then two lower votes. And I think that's what the additional sentence in Councilmember Parker's proposal does. So if you add that sentence to Councilmember Helsley's amendment, then you got it all covered.
I agree. Would a 10-minute recess allow the attorneys to do that?
I don't even need a 10-minute recess.
Okay.
I think he just did it.
I mean, Councilmember Parker's, I mean, she would need to, I guess, first Councilmember Helsley has to be voted on first, because.
No, we can just go ahead,
Amend the
we can just go ahead
amendment?
and add that additional language to Councilmember Helsley's amendment right now, and then that will cover it in Councilman Roberto's ordinance, and then you'll be done.
Okay.
Ms.
It's
Fury,
on.
yeah,
You're on. It's off now. There you go.
Okay, y'all all hear my sigh? So I, from a Robert's Rules of Order thing, and I am certainly no parliamentarian, if we have an amendment on the floor, how do we amend an amendment?
Well, we can just, if she desires to do it, this is Councilmember Helsley's amendment.
Okay, if you
If
felt
she
so
wants to,
inclined, she
if
could.
she wants to modify her amendment to include that additional language, then there's not a problem.
Okay.
Sounds like a great
Just-
idea.
Councilmember Helsley, would you like to modify your amendment?
If I can find what I'm supposed to make. Where's the new stuff? I've got 4 packets over here.
Mayor, just for clarification, if we look at the amendment that Councilmember Helsley brought, she has highlighted items in Section 6, subsection B, as well as subsection C. And so those were the original motions that Councilmember Helsley made. Adding, I guess the question for Councilmember Helsley then is, and for everyone else, is where would additional language be added to accommodate what Councilmember Parker has proposed on this document?
I think on this document, you would simply add the additional sentence right after the 2 sentences that currently exist, the one sentence that occurs in B and the one that occurs in C, and they're just repeat sentences. And I think that you put at the end of that,
Could you say the page number you're reading from and then read out the full sentence? Is there a page number?
I don't have page numbers on the ones I have in front of me.
Well, let's just count them then,
Mr.
so we know
Swanson,
what we're
Mr.
talking
Swanson,
about.
can I suggest that you read Councilwoman Helsley's sentence followed by the additional sentence
what I was asking.
together?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Mr. Swanson's going to read
All right.
Ms. Helsley's amendment.
However, if more than one candidate receives the highest number of votes in the primary election, then only those candidates receiving the highest number of votes shall be placed on the regular ballot. And then you come down and say, however, wait a minute.
If proceeding.
Yeah, if proceeding to the regular election and only one candidate receives the highest number of votes and more than one candidate receives the second highest number of votes in the primary election, then the candidate receiving the second highest number of votes and all those candidates receiving the second highest number of votes shall be placed on the regular election ballot. I think that does it.
And that's
I
the
think that
amendment.
covers
now-
it.
That's the amendment
That
on
will
the
cover both
table.
first place ties and second place.
Ms.
That would
Helsley,
go
does
in
that,
subsection B and subsection C.
Okay.
Yes.
So Ms. Helsley has said that that is the amended version of her amendment that she wishes to put forward. Why don't we have is there a second for that modification? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Swanson, for reading it out, and Mr. Roberto for helping us with the page numbers and locations. How many lawyers does it take to, yeah.
Apparently 3.
You could ask
there.
your husband.
He's definitely not involved. Anyhow, let's see, Ms. Helsley, you have your light on.
No.
Okay. I don't see any other lights on, so does everyone understand the amendment before them? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion to amend passes. And now I believe, Councilmember Roberto, you wanted to make a motion to read this on an emergency basis because it has been a substantive change, but we have a time issue.
Thank you, Mayor. I will make a motion to read this on emergency as we've now adopted this language that Councilmember Parker wanted to have us add.
Okay, there's been a motion, has been made and seconded to read this on emergency, which means if it passes tonight, then it passes and would be on the ballot for the voters of Knoxville to consider in November. We're going to vote now on the motion to consider this on an emergency basis. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now back to the motion as amended, reading it on an emergency basis. Is there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 8-1. I think we should take a 10-minute recess. Let's reconvene at 7:48. Okay, 10 minutes have gone by. We're going to reconvene and resume our meeting. We'll start with item 10A. A resolution approving an appeal by Joyce Feld. Go ahead.
10A is a resolution approving an appeal by Joyce Feld on behalf of Scenic Knoxville of a decision of the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant a variance to reduce the minimum required street frontage for a changeable price sign from 250 feet to 174.89 feet per Article 13.6.G.1 for property located at 5014 Washington Pike, thereby reversing the decision of the board and denying the original variance request.
Okay, there's one person, the appellant, Joyce Feld. Please come up. You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak to council on this matter.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Feld. I live at 1540 Aguila Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919, and I am here tonight as president of Scenic Knoxville. I'm going to provide some historical context for this appeal, and then Scenic Knoxville board member Kevin Murphy is going to present on the specifics of this case. So several years ago, Scenic Knoxville asked City Council to ban new electronic message centers, also known as EMCs. For reference, most people are familiar with the digital on-premise sign in front of the shrimp dock on Kingston Pike in Bearden, which actually was the city's very first electronic message sign. Council ultimately voted to ban new EMCs, but before they did, I want to emphasize there was a lot of discussion and a lot of public input, which went on for weeks, if not months. And I don't know if he remembers this, but Councilmember Rob Frost even joked at the time that EMC didn't actually stand for Electronic Message Center, but instead it stood for Every Meeting Considered. Do you remember that? I remember it very clearly. Included in this discussion was what to do about a specific kind of EMC called a changeable price sign. And this is the kind of digital sign that we sometimes see at gas stations. Council was, at that time, reluctant to ban these altogether, but they also wanted to prevent a proliferation of intrusive digital signs. So the compromise that they struck from a total ban, which was the other option, was to limit changeable price signs to parcels with a minimum of 250 feet of frontage on the street where the property is addressed. So the compromise would allow some properties to have a changeable price sign, but there would not be a proliferation of them with that requirement in place. So we think, Scenic Knoxville thinks that this much discussed, very well thought out compromise has worked very well, and we ask that you approve this appeal. And I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, you didn't sign up.
I did not, ma'am. I'm sorry, I thought this was an appeal hearing that we could do our.
If council members have questions later in their discussion, they can ask you.
Okay.
No one has signed up to speak in opposition to this appeal. So council members.
Can I speak for Mr. Murphy?
If you had your opportunity, Ms. Feld, council will have its opportunity. We're supposed to have people sign up ahead of time for the opposition, for the pro. Do we usually? That's how we usually do it. I have no idea. If you didn't use your full 5 minutes, I hear a lot of talking over here. Do you guys have some? Yeah. Ms. Ryder.
My apologies. I'm unclear when we have appeals. It's always been, Mr. Johnson is telling me that only those who sign up in advance get to speak, but it's always been the person who, the for and the against. And so they have to.
It is always the for and against. It's 3 for and 3 against.
No, the rules are not the same for an appeal.
And then there's 2 rebuttal. The rebuttal's the distinction, and in my recollection, and apparently the same with Mr. Johnson, people have been asked to sign up in advance. But, if council wants to call on these people, or wants me to call on them now, it's fine if you want to depart from those rules.
I think, in fairness to the discussion earlier, I would not be supportive of the second speaker unless they signed up.
Okay, so just know that there are other people in the audience who have information they are willing to share if council wants to call on them during their discussion.
Can I use the rest of my 5 minutes?
Mr. Johnson, do you remember how much time she'd used?
It was 2 and some change left.
Okay, sure. Why don't we have 2 more minutes?
I have 2 more minutes?
Approximately. That's our best estimate.
Okay, I didn't think I spoke that long. But so this lot was a redevelopment from 2010. There used to be a sign on the corner of Washington Pike and I forget what the other road frontage is, but when they redeveloped, the building was torn down and they put a new building up and they relocated the sign and they chose to locate the sign in the drainage ditch. So previously, it had not been in a drainage ditch. They chose, for some reason, to put it in the drainage ditch, but it did not have to be there. Also, there are other remedies that could make this situation safer, because I think that that's their primary complaint, and that's that they could put wider planks on either side of the sign, and they could also put a railing so that it would eliminate the possibility that somebody might fall off. But as you can see from the photographs that you have there, this is not a very deep ditch. I think you can see Mr. Murphy standing in front of the ditch. So it's not like somebody is going to fall several feet down if they fell off their ladder. Also, there is a mechanical changeable price sign that could be implemented here that would probably be less expensive to insert into their sign than a digital changeable price sign, and that would be less obtrusive since it's not digital, and we would be okay. We would not oppose that change. We feel like this is not a legitimate hardship, that by locating the sign in the water drainage in the ditch, they created their own hardship, and the sign did not have to be located there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Council members, that concludes the people who signed up to speak to this item. Is there a discussion or motion? Councilmember Ryder?
Yes. So I would like to, with a limited amount of time, I'm probably going to call on Mr. Ahrens, but Mr. Ahrens will be cognizant of my time because I probably want to call on the applicant as well. Mr. Ahrens, I'm going to speak to a point made by Ms. Feld. In the packet that we got, which I don't know if Mr. Murphy or Ms. Feld have an extra packet that they could supply to Mr. Ahrens so that he could follow along with me. These are multiple aerials of the property, which I know you saw during, probably during the BZA hearing. This is what's being appealed. In the 2008 aerial, which is the first page, the sign for the previous business is closer to the corner of Center Line and Washington Pike. What dictates where the sign has to be? It has to be on a particular frontage?
It does not. Peter Ahrens, City of Knoxville Plans Review and Inspections, it's up to the applicant. It's up to the property owner, the tenant.
So they could put it on Center Line, they could put it on Washington Pike?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So previously, with the previous structure, as you can see from this 2008 aerial, the sign was closer to the corner versus further down where the drainage ditch is. You can see the shadow of the sign there in the bottom. Is that an allowable place for the sign to be?
Can't answer that. The different sign regulations back then, I believe.
No, I'm saying if the applicant, okay. Okay, let me stop for just a moment. So the applicant filed for a variance from the sign regulations because they felt they had a hardship because their sign is in a drainage ditch and they want to make it electronic so their employees don't have to stand in the drainage ditch.
That's correct.
So when I look at the aerial, if I flip in the packet to the 2014 aerial, which is the next to last page, the drainage ditch is not everywhere. The drainage ditch is different when you move closer to the corner. You can see from the shadowing, it's deeper in some areas than it is in other areas. Could the sign not be dead square centered in the deep trenches of the drainage? Like, couldn't it move further up towards the corner where in 2008 there was a sign there?
I'm sure there are options to relocate the sign to a different area. I haven't evaluated every opportunity.
Okay, so that was what, okay, thank you so much for this moment, Mr. Ahrens. Sir, I'm so sorry, I do not know your name, but I believe you're here for the for the appellant.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't
Appellee.
know. What?
Appellee is the one,
Anyway,
appellant is the one who
you're
makes
the other
appeal.
side, man.
Yes, ma'am. And I apologize.
I didn't go to law school.
I
We
was
didn't
not
cover that.
aware I was not aware that we were required to sign in. My name is Randy Ridge, and I'm here on behalf of Sycamore Sign Service of Knoxville. We're involved with this job. What I would have to say is the original variance that was granted met the conditions required for a variance. Your Board of Zoning Appeals.
I don't think there was a variance. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
You go ahead.
I'm sorry. It was my understanding there was a variance granted and
Yes,
then an
and it's
appeal
being
was filed.
appealed.
Yes, ma'am. I'm simply asking council to consider reinstating this variance that was overturned when Ms. Feld filed her appeal. With all due respect, certainly nobody in the sign industry is opposed to beautification. The statement was made by Ms. Feld about obtrusive gas price changers. I think that's a subjective opinion, frankly. This is a static sign. It's not an electronic message center. It is a static sign that remains on the number. It's a sign to give the current gas price until it's changed. I would also say, please take into consideration the public safety aspect of both the location of this sign and the employee that has to go out and manually change these pricers. If you can imagine the way this system works, you've got an extendable telescopic type pole with a suction cup on the end of it. You have to affix that suction cup to a particular number, lift it, pull it out. This sign is maybe 10 feet off the edge of the pavement there at Washington Pike.
Sir, I have 5 seconds. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Sorry, and then my
Yes, ma'am.
colleagues can ask you questions. I
Sure.
hate to interrupt. Now I
Sure.
have no time.
Yes.
Just, can I
yeah.
ask a quick question?
Sure, just
The
one
the
question.
application, if the variance stand, is your client changing the entire sign?
No, ma'am.
Or is it just a component
No,
within the
ma'am.
sign?
Only the manual.
So the footings
gas
that are
price.
there would remain where they are?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'll let my colleagues
Okay.
ask questions.
I don't see anybody else's light on at the moment. Oh, Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Murphy, did you have anything you wanted to add to the discussion?
Thank you, Councilman Roberto. Kevin Murphy, 4508 Murphy Road. Really, the only things that I'd add is that the sign is in the water quality easement. They made a choice to locate the sign where it is, which is located within the water quality easement. They could have put it other places, but they prioritized some of the more other places for putting like air pumps, fueling stations, parking. But they have lots of places on their site that they could put signage. They do have their, some, relief keeping the existing sign and railing. They also have relief of, they could have asked for a changeable price sign without the EMC component, but they've asked for a changeable price sign, which by the zoning ordinance here includes the allowance for an EMC for the price piece. We don't believe they have a hardship. There are not unique features to the land that present placing a sign anywhere on this land, and that's a requirement for variance in BZA and state law is you have to have a hardship that denies you use of the land. They have lots of options of where they could place a sign otherwise. If you somehow do find they have a hardship, we assert that this is because the property owner brought it on themselves by their site design, and that is a self-created hardship, and there's well-settled case law, particularly McClurkin versus Board of Zoning Appeals in Nashville, that says that if you're going for a variance and claiming a hardship, you can't create your own hardship. And finally, if you're still even at the point, well, they created a hardship, it's not theirs, we just would say that if you think they need some relief, condition the relief so that they can't have the changeable price, the EMC component of the changeable price sign. Thank you.
Councilmember Ryder?
Yes. So I believe the gentleman that spoke a moment ago is from the sign company. I want to refer back to the, in our packets, page 64, 63, and 62 is the transcribed minutes from the BZA meeting. And the BZA meeting, the discussion was that they needed the variance because there's a hardship, because the sign numbers have to be changed because it's in a drainage ditch, and there are these wooden bridges, which we have a picture of those in our packet because we have a street level view of that. What I'm having a difficult time with is a couple of things, is, you know, as Ms. Feld stated, the sign ordinance was highly deliberated and highly debated and went on for multiple years. And we're being asked to give a variance to our sign code because, based on this created hardship of where the sign is, that it's in the drainage. But what's interesting is that if you look through the years of aerials, and I've looked at years of aerials on Google, and they go back to 2011. And this is more for the shell company, not for you, the sign guy, and you're the one standing here in front of us. But 2011, the employees had to stand on these wooden planks in a drainage ditch. 2012, 2013, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I'm going to skip ahead. 2024, here we are. And now it's a concern that we need to change the sign because we don't want the employees to have to stand on these wooden planks to change the numbers on the sign. And I don't understand why we have to grant a variance 13 years later because of the danger to the employees. Why was there no concern for the employees changing the numbers in all those other years? So I think that goes back to Ms. Feld and Mr. Murphy's original thing, is there was a choice made to put the base of the sign in the drainage ditch when just a little bit further back it wouldn't be. And so we made a choice a very long time ago to cite the sign here, and now we want to change it, and it's in violation, and we need a variance because we made a choice, and that choice worked for 13 years. We were fine for it, but now we want to spend some money and change it, so we need a variance. So I'm not inclined to support the variance, which would mean I would make a motion again to support the appeal, because it just doesn't make any sense to finally decide 13 years later.
Yes, ma'am. I can't speak to why the current location was chosen. I can tell you that there was a City of Knoxville water main close by, so possibly the location of the sign was related to the location of utilities there at the site. I can't say for certain. We were not involved in the relocation of the original pylon sign. We've simply been brought in for the customer's desire to have an electronic gas price changer. And again, not an electronic message center with scrolling messages or messages that change every 9 seconds or so. This will be a static number. I do not find those to be intrusive. I think it's an industry advancement that has gotten us away from the old days of manual price changers. I'm familiar with some signs where the sign actually has to be accessed by a ladder. You have to climb up a ladder, similar to an old billboard. But not only is there a danger, in my mind, to the employee that's out there in the water and the sleet and snow trying to change these price numbers, due to the close proximity of the edge of pavement of Washington Pike, when they're up there with these poles and these numbers, these things do fall off those poles occasionally, despite the best efforts of whoever's replacing the numbers. I feel like it poses a risk to traffic along Washington Pike if one of the numbers was to fall on the windshield of a car passing by. I mean, that could lead to an accident. And I'm not trying to oversell the safety aspect. I'm just putting that out there for consideration. It's not only a safety issue for the employee of the convenience store. I feel like the point could be made that it's also potentially a risk to vehicular traffic that passes within close proximity.
Real quickly say our ordinance doesn't ban these types of signs. It just limits them to certain locations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other council members? Vice Mayor Smith.
I just would add that I'm inclined to side with Councilwoman Ryder's points that this is a hardship created by the company. You as a sign company, you're here on their behalf, and you all do great work, by the way, but this is a hardship that's by the company and not by the zoning code, so, or the land use.
Okay, I don't believe there's a motion.
I'll
on the
make
floor.
a motion to approve the appeal.
A second.
Okay, a motion on the floor has been made to approve the appeal, which would undo the variance. And it's been made and seconded. Councilmember Helsley, no? Are there, Councilmember Parker?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share that these votes continue to be difficult for me because the law does in many ways limit our actions. But if you look at the intent behind the law, it was to allow reasonable actions to move forward that might conflict with an ordinance. And this is one of, we've had a couple come before us where it's like, I agree with the Board of Zoning Appeals. I completely disagree with their reasoning behind it. But I agree with their thoughts around it that it's a reasonable request and there would be no harm to the neighborhood. But our decisions have been based on that strict reading of the law that forces us to simply look at land use and any aspects of the land that are preventing full use of the property. And so I hate making decisions where we're saying, yes, we would rather you waste thousands of dollars to move a sign because that's what aligns with our ordinances, rather than to make this what seems like simple change that won't harm the community. So it's a difficult decision, but I do think the law is clear on it, and I think our Board of Zoning Appeals might need some help, a little instruction, but I'm in agreement with my colleagues on this one, unfortunately.
Okay, Councilmember Ryder?
No, I'm going to leave it for a moment.
Okay, there are no other lights on, so all those in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries, the appeal is upheld. Next item.
11A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into amendment number 1 to agreement number 190013 with the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation to increase federal funding for the Middlebrook Pike Advanced Traffic Management System project and extend the date of completion to March 31, 2026.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9B is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with AT&T allowing the city to place and maintain attachments on AT&T utility poles along Middlebrook Pike for an estimated cost of $1,295.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11C is a resolution authorizing the mayor to amend the contract with Whaley Construction LLC for the Old Broadway Sidewalk Project, increasing the contract amount by $439,621.50 for a new total contract amount of $2,984,414.85.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a sub-grantee agreement with the Volunteer Ministry Center to provide an amount not to exceed $54,131 in HUD Emergency Solution Grant funding for the provision of rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention services.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Ryder?
Yeah, I just wonder if there's someone here to speak for what we're going to accomplish with this and/or continue, and what the quantities might be.
Okay, yeah, I think someone here's from BMC, lowering the podium. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Gabe Klein with Volunteer Ministry Center, 511 North Broadway. And this is to fund half of our continuing rapid rehousing program. case managers.
Oh, okay, so this, how many case managers does it fund? So the two?
So it funds one.
It funds one person, okay. And, Ms. Klein, what are the, like, numbers of how many people are rehoused through this, or does it vary?
It varies. At any given time, there are 15 folks on a caseload that they're actively working with to get into housing.
Okay, so the person's serving approximately 15 clients at a time?
At a given time, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11E is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a sub-grantee agreement with Volunteer Ministry Center to provide street outreach services in an amount not to exceed $50,034 from HUD Emergency Solutions Grant Funding.
Motion made to approve and seconded. We have one person signed up to speak in favor of this item, Rick Roach.
Rick Roach, Knoxville. Vote for this. It is seriously needed, period.
Okay, council members, that concludes people signed up to speak to this item. Any more questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11F is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for approval from U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to use Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program grant funds in the amount of $1,823,342, or in such other payments, or amounts rather, as may be beneficial to the city, with a required local match in the amount of $3,916 to be paid by the Knoxville County Office of Housing Stability, and if approved, to accept the said funds and distribute the same to local subrecipients.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, I just want to say what a great opportunity this is. We got the planning grant, and we are very hopeful that we'll get this one too. And I just want to publicly thank the members of the Youth Action Board who have been leading and helping design our plans from the get-go, which is a big reason why we got the planning grant. Mr. DuBose has answered many of your questions via email. If you have any further questions, he's available. Councilmember Ryder.
Yeah, so just for discussion, I don't, Mr. DuBose, I guess, would be the one to answer.
And
So-
Aaron Reed is also
And Aaron
here,
Reed's
yeah.
also here. So we got the planning grant. This is to apply for the grant to actually execute. Is that correct?
That is,
What's a time frame for when we might hear back on the application?
well, we've basically been awarded, so this is the second gate.
Okay.
So we received the planning grant. They said, okay, you're awarded, you have to apply for this amount. And, and so we're asking for permission to apply and then also to pass it along to the subrecipients who have been selected through this process.
Okay. So, Mr. DuBose or Ms. Reed, I don't know who wants to speak to it. Could you, for the public record, could you talk about how this is going to help us expand or do something different than what we've done? Because what our constituents are often asking is, you can move up if you want to speak, Ms. Reed. What are you doing? What are you adding? What are you doing more than what we've been doing? How are you addressing the problems and the people that need services? So.
Absolutely. I am so proud to come and talk with you about this grant, about our progress on this grant since the last time we spoke about it, which was last year. So essentially, it's a youth-led grant process. The Youth Action Board, which is made up of youth with lived experience of homelessness, have led us to a plan that outlines 2 projects that will be funded under this grant by subrecipients in the city. One for doing transitional housing and rapid rehousing, specifically for youth. And then the second project is homelessness diversion and system navigation. And that will include a centralized diversion fund for helping youth at risk of homelessness to avoid becoming homeless. And the expertise of the Youth Action Board is helping move us toward a youth homelessness system that is welcoming, that is inclusive, and that works for the people who need to use the services. So I'm just really proud to talk about this grant because it's going really well.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to everything getting off the ground and running and being able to help more people. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11G is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents to apply for a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development lead-based paint hazard reduction and healthy homes grant in an amount up to $4,600,000 with a required local match in an amount up to $400,000, and if such application is approved, authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to accept such a grant award.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11H is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Unicorn HCM Incorporated to provide payroll tax preparation, and human resources service for K-Trans Management Incorporated, DBA, Knoxville Area Transit for an initial term of 3 years at a cost not to exceed $214,000.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Ms. Parker.
I had a few questions for Kat, if they don't mind coming down. Thank you. Is this a new payroll service, or is this replacing something?
It is actually the current one we use now. Our contract with Unicorn ran out. We went out to bid for that. They reapplied, and we're getting a new contract with them.
Okay, gotcha. And we had some public forum speakers at our last meeting with some concerns. One of those that came out is no new contract for current CAT employees. Where do things stand with the contract?
The contract's not up until June 30th. It expires June 30th of 2025.
So you do have a contract in place?
We have a contract in place.
Okay. Do you have any comments about what was said?
No, not really sure. I'll listen to some of those comments. We just had a meeting with the union this morning, so I'm not really sure. Contract negotiations typically start in January, 6 months before the contract ends.
Okay, all right. They were concerning comments, and that's one reason why I wanted to ask this question and see, especially if we're looking at services to advance our human resources services, to see if that can address any of these issues.
It's a little bit misleading. Actually, this contract doesn't provide any human resource services. That's all done in-house. Basically, what Unicorn does is it's our way we track our payroll. So employees will be able to, from benefit standpoint and payroll, employees are able to submit days off through the payroll system, but it's a little misleading when it says HR services. All that's done in-house.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes, just a quick question for Kat there. This is just for public information. I think we are closing in on the implementation of Reimagine CAT, and I bet you know the exact date for the public.
Yeah, August 26th.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11I is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with A&A Associates Incorporated to provide all personnel, materials, equipment, and supervision necessary to provide recycling, maintenance, customer assistance, and educational services at 5 area locations throughout the city for an annual contract price not to exceed $194,922.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11J was withdrawn. 12A is an ordinance of the Council of the City of Knoxville to amend the Charter of the City of Knoxville, specifically Chapter 412 of the Private Acts of 1923 of the General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, entitled An Act to Incorporate the City of Knoxville and Knox County, Tennessee, and define the rights, powers, and liabilities of the same, to fix the boundaries of said municipality and repeal all acts or parts of acts in conflict with this act and all acts amendatory thereto by amending Article 7, Section 707A, B, and C so as to set a process for primary and regular elections of council members consistent with Public Chapter 391 Acts of 2023, including establishing that only voters within a city district shall vote in a council district election, rather than all city voters electing district candidates in the regular election, and establishing that at-large candidates may be elected in the primary with a majority of the votes, rather than requiring the election of at-large candidates in the regular election, and changing the candidates placed on the regular election ballot to candidates receiving the two highest number of votes in the primary rather than the two candidates with the highest number of votes, and further providing for the submission of this ordinance to the voters, the qualified voters of the City of Knoxville for approval as provided in Article 11, Section 9 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee.
Councilmember Parker.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve, but before I do that, I just wanted to give council a heads up that if I get a second on my movement to approve, I would also make a motion to substitute the updated version that is before you rather than the caption that has been read off. Is anyone signed up to speak
There
to
are
this?
two people signed up to speak in favor of this, so we can listen to, hear from them and then go back to you for your.
Well, I'm not sure which way we should do it, but my preference would be that we go ahead and approve the substitute so that we are all speaking on the same item.
Well, and typically we've been calling people first, but council members, do you want to make a motion?
We can call people first.
Or go ahead and make a motion. Or, you said you wanted to make a motion?
We can call people first.
Okay, first person signed up to speak on item 12A in favor is Bentley Marlowe.
Bentley Marlowe, 322 Douglas Avenue, 37921. I personally think it makes a little bit more sense to know what it gets amended and how it gets amended before we speak. But I guess while we're here, since we're making changes to the charter, might as well address everybody's concerns and just put it all up for the voters. Let's just fill it up and let us figure it out and sort it out. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, next person signed up to speak to item 12A is Rick Roach.
Rick Roach, Knoxville. What Mr. Marlowe said, yeah, let's just do what we got to do, or you guys do what you got to do. But in that process, please really, really start to think about and consider what, if you vote for this, if you get this on the ballot and let the people decide, it's about how you do business for the city of Knoxville and how you steward. Because the truth of the matter is, having a few people outside a particular district make decisions, and that's basically what's been happening. That is basically what's been happening for a long time. It has put all the isms in play. for particular areas of Knoxville, whether we want to deal with it or not. So the underlying racism that we've dealt with through the decades, that I've seen and had to deal with and had to kind of relearn about when I started trying to get involved in community stuff, man, it's been rough. To repeatedly come up against what people on city council, decision makers, and some of the decision makers that are appointed and hired by the city, having to deal with those folk through the years, to find out that at the end of the day, no matter how well-intentioned you all are, the communities that I've existed in Knoxville, primarily District 6, East Knoxville, and that I have a historical connection to, District 6, Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, East Knoxville, kind of been left out. People have been ignored. And so when you have that continual situation, always up front, at least for me, I notice it. I deal with it. You know, we don't have a voice within our areas, and we can't hold people accountable because everything is coming down on this particular district and now others, because slowly and surely we've had, again, a spreading out of a predominantly black population of East Knoxville and Mechanicsville, Lonsdale. It's now spread out literally into all districts in Knoxville, in the city of Knoxville, okay? And literally you've had people filter out, get spread out because they can't, their voices aren't heard because they lived in East Knoxville, okay? Other people were making decisions, and we have that seriously going on right now. We have that seriously going on right now. People's voices are not being heard. And I'm speaking in favor of this resolution, ordinance, excuse me. District only, that's where we should start. Whatever the other amendments are about tie votes and all that, okay, you know, include it, do whatever you got to do with it. But the main thing is there has to be a commitment or recommitment for people within a particular legislative district voices to be heard. And they have to be considered, okay? And you all have to start giving people a reason to want to vote, okay? And not leave it up to the people who have all the big financial resources, because that's the way things are breaking down now. It is about the money, whether we want to admit it or not. So do what you got to do.
Okay, that concludes the people who've signed up to speak to this item. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. I probably won't take the longer time to introduce it because we've covered some of this already in the earlier discussion. But I couldn't help but start out my comments by acknowledging that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed 59 years ago today. And it just kind of gives me chills to think about that long legacy and history and what is before us today to vote on. When I was a student in law school, I was very fortunate to be able to work for the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And I worked in their minority business section. They have had an amazing voting rights section that was leading a lot of the fights around the country. working to hold cities accountable to the spirit of and the letter of the law of the Voting Rights Act. And one repeated theme that has come up are the problem of these at-large districts. And I'm not going to repeat all the history because our speakers tonight did a really good job of going through some of that history and some of that case law, where numerous cities, some when they simply adopted the electoral system, not waiting to see what the impact was, found their system shot down by a court of law because of the makeup of their city, because of the percentage of minority voters, cohesive voting bloc that existed in their city similar to ours. We are at a point where we will definitely have the regional at-large system on the ballot. I created this ordinance to have another option. I created this ordinance as an alternative to the regional system, but that has now passed. And I do believe that voters need an alternative to allow multiple measures on the ballot dealing with the same issue. We learned 2 weeks ago that none of them could conflict. And so with my ordinance, you'll see that language has been removed and language has been altered to ensure that the ordinances don't conflict, but to achieve the same goals. And so the district-only language is removed. The tiebreaker language has been updated, and we just went through what that language is. It was read out and added to the regional at-large ordinance. And it deals with the ability of at-large council members to win in the primary with 50% plus one. I do not think this is the best scenario for voters. I still think that we'll have a little bit of confusion to overcome in the next few months. But I do think it's important that if the regional at-large option is put on the ballot, that we're able to give another option for voters that still allows them to address the tiebreaker issue, allows them to address the 50% plus one. And then if the regional proposal does not prevail, we would get the district-only option. So with that said, there may be questions. I want to stop there and make a motion to approve so that we can consider the substitute. So I move to approve.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second? Okay, the motion fails for lack of a second. Moving on. The next item, please.
12B is an ordinance approving the request of Asylum Avenue LLC for an amendment to the Central City Sector Plan from mixed-use special district Gateway Corridor to mixed-use regional center for property located at 940 Blackstock Avenue, leaving all special purpose land use classifications unchanged, 6th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded.
There's nobody.
Nobody signed up to speak on this item. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Parker, your latest on for this item? No, okay. Seeing no lights on, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12C is an ordinance approving the request of Asylum Avenue LLC for an amendment to the one-year plan from mixed-use special district Gateway Corridor to mixed-use regional center for property located at 940 Blackstock Avenue, leaving all special purpose land use classifications unchanged, 6th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12D is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification of property located at 940 Blackstock Avenue from CG2 District to DKE District. Asylum Avenue applicant 6th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12E is an ordinance approving the request of Commercial Redevelopment LLC for an amendment to the South City Sector Plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential for property located at 3514 and 3520 Sevier Avenue, 1st District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Vice Mayor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make one little point here on this item. This property rezoning is adjacent to a little commercial node in South Knoxville, which is great. It's surrounded by kind of the entire neighborhood is LDR, and so this would be the first change to medium density, and it is adjacent to this commercial corridor. However, it is very difficult for the neighborhood to see this and not be a little concerned with the start of a domino effect. And the appropriate way to handle this is through our sector plans, and as we all know, those are a bit out of date. This one dates back, the South City Sector Plan dates back to 2011, and there's quite a bit changed in the past 23 years. And I say all that to say that we always look at rezonings based off of planning's work with the community, and there's no more substantial work with the community than these big plans for what they want in the area. And it's been 13 years, and so there's new neighbors and totally new neighborhood leadership. So, long-winded way to say this is just an example of why I think we need updated sector plans. I know, Mayor, we've discussed this, and that next year I think will be something that we collectively move towards. But the more these are out of date, the more modernity and new development patterns surprise neighbors, and they're not really sure how to think about how the area is going to grow. And one-off request does not set us up for success with the neighborhoods to feel good about the way the neighborhood's going to grow. So, long way to say the neighborhood, South Haven neighborhood, is okay with this, but they'd like, a well-thought-out plan around what's the next 13 years going to look like. So, just a plug.
Okay.
Just while I'm at it, I would like to make a motion to consolidate items 12E, F, and G.
Okay, motion, I guess a substitute motion to be made. Is it substitute? Anyhow.
Can I move for a suggestion?
Yeah.
When they ask to consolidate, there's no opposition. There's no need to get a second vote. No one
Okay.
opposes it. That's my suggestion. I think we can just vote on the consolidated motion. Yeah.
Consolidated motion E, F, and G. If there's no concerns about that, we'll move forward with voting on all three at once. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to
12H is an ordinance approving the request of Chia Sang Wu for an amendment to the South City Sector Plan from heavy industrial to light industrial for property located at 925 and 929 and 933 Maryville Pike, 1st District.
Move to approve. And,
Did
Mayor-
you want to consolidate
Yes.
H-I-J?
Yes, please, H-I-J.
Okay. Okay, motion made to approve H, I, and J has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Vice Mayor Smith? No? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
N is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification of property located at 315 Aaron Drive from IG District to IMU District. Benjamin C. Mullins, applicant, 2nd District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted everyone to know this is a down zone, zoning from IG to IMU, and it was approved on consent.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12O is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for a portion of property located at 2909 North Broadway from O District to CG2 District, leaving all special purpose and overlay districts unchanged. Carm Restoration LLC, applicant 5th District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, Mayor, I think Mr. Stephen Claybo is here for Carm. I would love for him to come down to the podium and say a few words and maybe answer a question or two.
Yes, be glad to. Thank you. Steve Claybo, Vice President of CARM. 418 North Broadway is our address. We have been fortunate enough to address an issue that we've had at 418, and all of you, I'm sure, are aware of it, that the increase in homelessness over the past few years, and especially in our women's section, we've had an increase of 60 to 70% of women and women with children. Trying to get ahead of the curve, we decided that we needed to make space for that population at 418. In order to do that, we were very fortunate to find the property at 2909 North Broadway, and that is where we relocated all our administrative offices at this time. That space is, or that property is now zoned as O, and we are looking for a CG2 zoning in order to give us the opportunity to do more of what we do at CARM. This change will not allow us to have any overnight housing, nor did we have any intent to ever do that. We've had the wonderful pleasure to meet with the Lincoln Park and Oakwood Homeowners Association just recently to answer any questions and concerns they had. That meeting went very, very well. What we will be is it's mostly administrative offices. We hope that we can expand our Abundant Life kitchen there. There is a small kitchen facility, but that is a catering operation that we have operating now, and it's just difficult to operate that out of the kitchen that serves our population at 418.
Your microphone, please.
Meeting that was Monday was very well received by all accounts. There were some concerns among some of the neighbors about what the project would entail, and I think you did an excellent job of allaying those fears. And I specifically wanted to call you to the podium because not everybody was at that meeting, and I wanted them to have a chance about what your plans were.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity.
And just one more question. The building as is it going to take major changes in the building, or basically, are you going to be able to use the building as is?
No, basically, we'll use it as is. If we need to expand any type of kitchen facility to serve, we could do that. But right now, we've got hopefully space to grow in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add a little context to that. This goes back a little bit. At one point, there was a rezoning activity brought by Walmart's Express. This was several years ago on that property. And a lot of people, including myself, had questions about it. And after a lot of discussion and opposition, the Walmart Express actually withdrew that activity. I could raise other issues about that, but I want to talk a little bit about sustainability, is because if the Walmart Express had come in, this building would have been torn down. And all the material in that building would have gone into a dump. And then a new building would have been built with other resources. And one of the least earth-friendly thing you can do is demolish and then rebuild. And because the neighborhood got active and we had some patience and Walmart actually voluntarily withdrew, over the years we found a much better use for that space and in a much earth-friendly method. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of take a little bit bigger picture of the context of what's going on here, and I think this is going to be a very good use for that building, and I don't see any negative impact to the neighborhoods on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12P is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for property located at 5900 and 5902 Kingston Pike from CG3 District to CG1 District. Taylor D. Forrester, applicant, 2nd District.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff, reading the report, staff denied this because the dimensional standards and the lack of design standards are incompatible with the adopted land use plans and surrounding infrastructure and facilities. That brought a smile to my face. And the reason is because staff is talking about design standards in CG1, and I'm thrilled. So this may be the last time I have to ask somebody these questions, but Mr. Forrester, can you tell us a little bit about this project, and then specifically, can you talk to me about which way the building will face?
Taylor Forrester, 1111 North Shore Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee. The building, the face of the building will front Kingston Pike.
And do you have any other design specifications you can talk to us about? That's certainly very important, so I appreciate you mentioning that.
No design specifications at this time. For full transparency, majority of council members were here when the special use for the Taco Bell on Kingston and Bearden came before City Council on an appeal located at a different property in Bearden, and there was a lot of discussion about fast food drive-through on the, I guess, north side of Kingston, where that was located near Bearden Elementary. Council did not feel that that was an appropriate location, and the discussion from council and the opposition was that the south side, where there were existing fast food drive-throughs, was a much more appropriate location. So property's been identified, and that's the basis or need for the requested rezoning. Again, that will require a special use review and approval by Planning Commission. We expect that the design guidelines will be in place by that submittal and that review and consideration. But again, building will front Kingston, and which is already kind of contemplated by the Bearden Village Plan as well. So
that's great.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Just reiterating that the biggest problem with not even having minimum design standards in CG1 was that you can have rear-facing buildings, and we have a few of those examples. And when the problem you see is that once those go up, they're there for 50 years or more, and that doesn't align with, I think, the vision we have long-term for Knoxville. Director Brooks, I've just got a couple minutes left. Can you talk to us a little bit about the design standards for CG1? I think it's coming up on a Planning Commission meeting that's coming up soon. Is that right?
Yes, Amy Brooks, Knoxville County Planning. That is correct. Councilmember, the Planning Commission will consider design standards in CG1 on Thursday.
That's great. I'm very excited about that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12Q is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification of property located at 911 West Baxter Avenue from RN4 District to CN District. Jennifer Skates, applicant, 6th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12R is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification of property located at 03026 and 3030 North Central Street from and 112 Atlantic Avenue from RN2 District to IMU District, and to add the H District zoning classification to property located at 3030 North Central Street, leaving all special purpose and overlay districts unchanged. Jared Eisenhower, applicant, 5th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. No one signed up for public forum?
Yes, that's right.
Council members, nobody has signed up for public forum, so without objection, this meeting is adjourned.